feel like I should have a glass and tap with a knife. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a very special event at Hampton Court Palace this evening. My name is Claire McLennan, and I am the Divisional Director of the Commemorative Coin Business at the Royal Mint. Thank you so much for joining us this evening after what has been a very difficult few years. We're delighted to see so many of you in person, but also to welcome guests from across the UK and the US via our live stream. This is the first time we've unveiled a series internationally, which really reflects the growing appeal of Royal Mint coins. We have some very exciting news to reveal to you this evening, and I'll be joined on stage by Brett Dolman from Hampton Court Palace and Andrew Dickey from the Royal Mint to share more information. For those watching at home, if you have any questions during the presentation, please share them via our Twitter account at Royal Mint, and we'd be delighted to come back to you. Now, if you don't know much about us, the Royal Mint is the original maker of UK coins. We can trace our history back 1,100 years and are one of the oldest companies in the world. We have honed our craft over generations and are the home of precious metals in the UK. We are famous for making the world's leading numismatic works of art and bullion collections that combine intrinsic design with intrinsic metal value. So today, the Royal Mint is based in South Wales. You can probably tell that by my accent, where we house the leading collection of historic British coins, as well as designing modern classics. We recently concluded one of the most successful coin series of recent times, the Queen's Beast. This series took its inspiration from the 10 statues that line Queen Elizabeth II's route to Westminster Abbey at her coronation. Each beast represented an element of Her Majesty's ancestry and followed a royal tradition, which dates back several centuries. And it's that tradition which brings us to this beautiful building today. We are stood here in the Great Hall of Hampton Court Palace, located just outside London. It was a favourite residence of one of Britain's most favourite monarchs, Henry VIII. And it was here that the king wined and dined his Tudor court. The Tudors used heraldic symbols such as beasts to help legitimise their right to rule. At the request of Henry VIII, 10 stone beasts were carved along the moat bridge of Hampton Court Palace, creating a formidable reminder of the mighty Tudor dynasty. 5 of those beasts relate to the ancestry of Henry VIII, and 5 honour his third wife, Jane Seymour. And that's a huge clue as to why we're here this evening. We are delighted to have partnered with Historic Royal Palaces, who care for this wonderful heritage site, to celebrate the Royal Tudor Beasts on a new collection of coins. The Royal Tudor Beasts is a new 10-coin collection from the Royal Mint. It builds on the success and appeal of the Queen's Beasts range, and each coin is an original work of art. The first coin in the Royal Tudor Beasts collection is the Seymour Panther, and I'm delighted to be able to share that with you this evening. Designed by renowned artist David Lawrence and modelled by Thomas Doherty at the Royal Mint, the Seymour Panther is depicted with flames coming out of its mouth and its ears. This fiery beast represents the union between Jane Seymour and Henry VIII and will be available from 9 a.m. tomorrow, UK time. The 2020 dated Seymour Panther will be available in limited edition gold and silver proof, as well as brilliant and circulated editions. Like all commemorative pieces from the Royal Mint, the Seymour Panther is struck to the highest standards, combining exclusivity with fine craftsmanship. The sharpness, detail, and finish makes it perfect for collectors. The Royal Tudor Beast Collection will see all 10 beasts of the stone statues at Hampton Court Palace, celebrated on UK Cone over the next 5 years. Initially offered as a commemorative range, the bullion edition will follow in early 2020. In addition to the Seymour Panther, the collection will feature the Lion of England, the Bull of Clarence, the Tudor Dragon, the Greyhound of Richmond, the Yale of Beaufort, the Seymour Unicorn, the Queen's Panther, and the Queen's Lion. The designs for these coins will be revealed in due course, and you can sign up to receive updates via social media and also the website, which is royalmint.com. We hope the Royal Tudor Beasts will join the Queen's Beast as a modern classic, appealing to collectors and investors, as well as history and art lovers. And to tell you a little bit more about the history, I'm delighted to welcome Brett Dolman onto the stage, who is the Curator of Palaces and Collections at Historic Royal Palaces. Brett.
Hello, thank you for coming. My name is Brett Dolman. I am Curator of Collections for Historic Royal Palaces, which means that I have a responsibility for looking after and researching the artworks and historic objects at the palaces that we look after, including here at Hampton Court. I'm also an historian and an art historian with a particular interest in the projection of the royal image in portraiture and through other media. Everything from the written word to dramatic performances, from heraldry to coins. And the historic period I'm most involved with here at Hampton Court is the magnificence and horror of the Tudors, a dreadful family in the literal sense of the word, who I first encountered at school and who I've come to both love and loathe ever since. And here they are, behind me. At the back, Henry VII, and his Queen Elizabeth of York, and their son Henry VIII and his third Queen Jane Seymour. This is an image of a 17th century copy of the Whitehall Mural, a life-size painting created by the court artist Hans Holbein to adorn one whole wall of the King's Privy Chamber at Whitehall Palace in about 1537. The original was lost when Whitehall burnt down in 1698. And the fact that it's a life-size mural is a bit of a clue as to the importance of the visual image of power and dynasty and how that was important to the Tudor monarchy. Now, this period of English history is particularly blood-stained and shocking, and King Henry VIII is arguably one of the least sympathetic monarchs in our history. But the stories remain compelling and can tell us a great deal about how modern England was formed. But I'm here today to help the Royal Mint launch its new collection of coins based on Hampton Court's very own Tudor royal beasts. So I'm going to spend no more than 10-15 minutes telling you a little bit about the history of the royal beasts and their significance. Now, as I'm sure you all know, it was Henry VIII who turned Hampton Court from a bishop's residence, already a grand Renaissance home for his chief minister, Thomas Wolsey, into a royal palace in the 1530s. For the king, it became a pleasure palace outside central London, a place to hunt, to relax, and to host extravagant parties and court masques. It was Hampton Court that also witnessed the birth in 1537 of Henry's son and heir, the boy who would later become Edward VI. And it was here too that Henry married his last and sixth wife, Catherine Parr. And here we are in Henry VIII's Great Hall, built in the 1530s as a grandiloquent dining room, really, for the lower ranks of court. But on special occasions, the space was transformed. You have to imagine an explosion of colour from every corner, almost everywhere. The roof, the floor, the furnishings, the tapestries, the costumes of the courtiers, all highly coloured. The light of hundreds of candles suspended from candelabra across the room, shimmering playfully, casting dramatic shadows. At one end of the hall is the Minstrels Gallery, where Henry VIII's court musicians would have entertained us. Beyond the screen's passage behind you is the entrance to the buttery, the food preparation rooms, and the stairs down to the great kitchens. At the other end, behind me, the doors lead out to the rest of Henry VIII's state apartments, the Great Watching Chamber, the private royal apartments, the Chapel Royal. How far you got, how many rooms you gained access to, was a measure of your importance. This is then one of the key surviving spaces where we can imagine the swaggering theatre of the Tudor royal court. Also, by the way, it's one of the few spaces where we know that William Shakespeare performed before King James I in the early years of the 1600s. That's another story. Back to the Tudor royal court, you have to imagine a visually magnificent culture, dripping with ostentatious displays of wealth and luxury, but also loaded with symbols and signs, meant to convey to courtiers, visiting ambassadors, and the wider public the awesome majesty and dynastic power of the Tudors. Can we have the next slide, please? And the royal beasts are part of this visual splendour and part of this symbolism, and they were everywhere at Hampton Court. There were carved, gilded and coloured statues of royal beasts in the gardens, 90 in the King's private garden. The modern versions in the Chapel Royal and the Chapel Court are based on these. And also atop the Great Hall, where we now have modern Victorian replica, and other buildings too, including the Moat Bridge. And the next slide, please. They are essentially an example of royal heraldry, which is the term used to describe the way aristocratic families throughout history have advertised their identity, their history, their lineage. It's really a form of branding. It's the same kind of thinking that goes more commonly these days into designing a football team's badge or a company logo. These designs are intended to express something about the team or the company's ethos, its image, its history. And so with the Tudor royal beasts. And the next slide. So an example. The most familiar royal beast to us today is probably the Lion of England, which appears on the modern royal heraldic shield and the England football shirt. The lion also appears as a supporter, one of the beasts used to hold the shield in the royal coat of arms. Its popularity as a symbol is because of the virtues that a real lion is meant to possess: strength, courage, majesty, pride. So the English football team, for example, is meant to have these virtues too. Henry VIII's use and choice of heraldic symbols reflected his paranoia about his hold on the throne. His father, Henry VII, had won the crown on the battlefield, but the previous century had seen various royal dynasties fight for supremacy during the Wars of the Roses. Henry VII was really a junior scion of the House of Lancaster, who used the red rose as an emblem. He shored up his claim to the throne by marrying Princess Elizabeth of the House of York, who deployed the white rose as a symbol. So the Tudor rose of red and white was thus a visual metaphor for the blood union of the two warring factions. And Henry VIII extended this symbolism throughout his heraldry or his branding, using badges and devices from his father's and mother's family to demonstrate his royal lineage. As well as the Tudor rose, Henry VIII used symbols of royal beasts, real and mythical, to lend a kind of magnificent authority to the image of Tudor kingship. Not just lions, but also panthers, dragons, greyhounds, yales, bulls, unicorns. All carry historic meaning relating to the dynastic lineage of the Tudors and symbolize strengths and characteristics that the Tudors liked to imagine they possessed. So in this way, Henry VIII employed heraldry to help create a powerful visual image for the Tudor monarchy. And the next slide, please. So when Henry VIII came to marry Jane Seymour as his third wife in 1536, the dynastic union was reflected in the design and detail of the specific set of royal beasts that were carved for the Moat Bridge at Hampton Court, and on which the Royal Mint has based its designs for the new coins, including the first of the set, the Seymour Panther. Now, originally there were 12 beasts, 6 for the king, 6 for his queen. The carvers Harry Courant and Richard Ridge were paid 26 shillings for each beast. And the next slide. The arrangement today alternates between kings and queens beasts, the Hound of Richmond, the Yale of Beaufort, and a Tudor dragon. A Yale, by the way, is a mythical beast, usually represented as an antelope or a goat, with the tusks of a wild boar and swivelling horns. On the proper left-hand side, you will find the Seymour unicorn, another dragon, the Queen's lion, the Bull of Clarence, and another panther. Originally, there was an extra unicorn and greyhound. And the final slide, please. The Seymour Panther, then, is one of the Queen's beasts, and like the others, is both an advert for the lineage of the Tudors and a statement of animalistic virtues. The panther as a symbol had been used by the Beaufort family. Henry VIII's grandmother was Margaret of Beaufort, and it was through Margaret that the Tudors claimed their Lancastrian royal lineage. Henry VIII seems to have transferred the panther as an heraldic symbol to his new wife, Jane Seymour, on their marriage, a supporter for her new coat of arms, part of which thus lending royal lustre and royal qualities to his wife's family. But this may also have been a cost-saving device too. Henry's previous wife, Anne Boleyn, had used a leopard as a symbol. Henry's carvers were ordered to change Boleyn leopards into Seymour panthers by adapting the heads and tails and changing the spots. The Seymour panther is part real, part mythical. In reality, a panther is a leopard, but in heraldry, the real was elided with the fantastical. The Seymour panther has the claws of an eagle and the tail of a lion. It is also a leopard with superpowers and an interesting superhero costume, as is more obvious in the painted version in the chapel court here today. It breathes fire through its jaws and ears and is covered in red and blue spots. This, of course, makes it appear awesome and terrifying, desirable qualities for an ambitious dynasty like the Tudors. Yet the panther also wears a crown collar and chain. The panther's ferocity has been tamed by royal authority. Now, the original moat beasts were destroyed when the moat was filled in during the 1690s, when Hampton Court was being modernised and rebuilt for King William III and Queen Mary II. The replicas that stand on the bridge today were designed from surviving fragments buried in the moat and records of other Tudor royal beasts from Tudor building accounts and heraldic manuscripts. But they were also reinterpretations, artistically configured and evocative of the aesthetic of the Edwardian age of the early 1900s, when the palace was being re-Tudorized, if that's a word, as a heritage attraction. So too the Royal Mint designs, which are an appealing marriage of modern design and centuries-old tradition, a balance between artistic inspiration, naturalistic accuracy, and the more stylized design of the beasts as they appeared in early modern heraldry. And I think this is a fine thing, as stories about the past. Properly researched and factually correct histories, of course, but I'm also here to make connections to the present day, to make our histories relevant to help explain the present, and in turn, by making histories immersive and interesting, to fire a wider interest in the past. It's a virtuous circle, if you like, just like the coins. So that's all from me. I'm going to hand over now to Andy Dickey, who is the Division Director for Precious Metals. So thank you very much once again for coming.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what a venue, hey? If my house had been a bit more like this, I wouldn't have minded lockdown for 12 months quite so much. Thank you, Brett. That was absolutely fascinating. I certainly feel honoured to be stood where so much British history has been made. My name is Andrew Dickey, and I am the Divisional Director for Precious Metals at the Royal Mint. We specialise in gold, silver and platinum investment options, ranging from physical bars, and it's particularly appropriate for me to be speaking here, as the Tudors had a huge impact on my division of the Royal Mint. And that's because it was Henry VIII's father, Henry VII, who founded the sovereign, also known as the chief coin of the world. And it remains one of the most coveted bullion coins available. And it was really the start of our investment range at the Royal Mint, so I've got a lot to thank him for. We specialise in offering products which combine craftsmanship, sophisticated visual security features, and, of course, intrinsic metal value. The Queen's Beasts investment range became a modern classic, as we all know. And last year, we introduced the world's most visually secure bullion coin, the Britannia. Together, these coins have helped establish the Royal Mint as a serious player in the bullion investment market. Now, I'm delighted to follow their success with a new range created in collaboration with historic royal palaces. As Claire has mentioned, the Royal Tudor Beast is a 10-coin collection offered over a span of 5 years. And it's been designed with customers at the very heart, ladies and gentlemen. The Royal Mint will offer a commemorative and bullion collection to meet the needs of investors and, of course, collectors. And the Royal Tudor Beast Bullion Collection will launch in early 2022. It will be available here in the UK, of course, and in international markets. Each coin will feature the same original artwork as the commemorative edition, and it's struck to a brilliant uncirculated standard in gold, silver, and platinum. Now, the bullion range combines art with intrinsic metal value. It's linked to the live precious metal spot price. And this makes them affordable and accessible as an option for investors and also a convenient alternative to holding bars. Bullion coins are also crucially capital gains tax exempt for UK residents. Now, we will be able to share details of the Royal Tudor Beast Bullion Collection over the coming months. But in the meantime, we have a wealth of information about bullion and precious metals investment products on our website, royalmint.com. And also don't forget that we host regular webinars and events which detail the different options available for customers looking to invest in precious metals for the very first time. So I hope I will see you on some of those in the very near future. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's explore the Tudor Beasts with this wonderful video which brings the collection to life. Thank you very much. In the very near future. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's explore the Tudor Beasts with this wonderful video which brings the collection to life. Thank you.
My name is Brett Dolman. I am Curator of Collections for Historic Royal Palaces. I look after and research the artworks and the historic collections that survive in our royal palaces.
Home of King Henry VIII.
My name is Brett. He takes it over from his right-hand man, Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, transforms it into a pleasure palace, really. He likes to come here to unwind, to hunt, and to have really huge, court occasions in places like this, the Great Hall.
You can still see today that the royal beasts decorate this magnificent bridge in an age where symbols of royalty.
The Royal Tudor Beasts are part of the language of heraldry, principally. This is the language which aristocratic families throughout history have used to illustrate, to advertise their lineage, their history, and their qualities, if you like.
The Seymour Panther is particularly interesting because it has strong links to Henry VIII's grandmother, Margaret Beaufort. She used the panther in her own heraldry. So this was a real honour on Henry's part to give this panther as a symbol of his new wife, Jane Seymour. And I think he was trying to prove a bit of a point because the Seymours, they weren't quite commoners, but they weren't royal either. So Henry was trying to enhance his new wife's status.
The original moat beast created for Henry VIII and Jane Seymour no longer survive. They were demolished and buried in the moat when the palace was rebuilt for William III in the 1690s. And those beasts, in fact, were also replaced in the 1950s by a new set. So we have this continuous reinvention of quite an old set of characters from the past. And this is really what a curator and an historian does. They take stories from the past, they bring them alive, they make modern connections for our visitors, which make them more interesting. And that in turn inspires people to look again at the past. So it's a virtuous circle, perhaps, a bit like the coins.